Hello friends, this is Worm, and we're back with another episode of Destiny 2 Perk Forge, the series where we take a look at Destiny 2 perks that are weak or underused inside of PvE, and talk about how we can potentially change them so that they are more viable. And as you can see on screen here, we're talking about Adagio today. And Adagio, I want to be clear on something. Adagio, I don't think is necessarily a bad perk. It is a damage boost, but it comes at a cost. And basically what the perk says here is it states, after defeating a target, this weapon fires, charges, or draws more slowly and deals increased damage for a brief time. That brief time is 7 seconds. Here exactly is the specific stats you get from it. So you get plus 30% damage, you get 20% longer firing delay / charge time / draw time, and then you get plus 10 to your range. Now, this perk, I want to point something out. 30% increased damage is a lot. 30% is an increased damage is a lot, especially for the fact that the only condition to activate this perk is to get a kill. Okay, think about it. Kill clip, you have to get a kill and then reload, and you only get 25%. Something like maybe one for all, you have to damage 3 separate targets. Something like rampage, in order to get to 30%, which is its max buff, you have to get 3 kills. Sorry, I couldn't think for a second. You have to get 3 kills to get it. So this is one of the easiest damage perks to activate, and it has one of the largest buffs in game. But of course, it comes at that massive downside, which is that minus 20 to your 20% slower fire rate. And of course, on bows and charge time weapons, it's a little bit different. But for things like auto rifles, just as an example, it fires 20% slower, which is a big difference. And I did the math, and the getting 30% more damage is a lot, but when you're lowering your fire rate, you're actually lowering your DPS output, and your overall DPS output while Adagio is active is only like plus 2.4%, somewhere, give or take that a little bit, right? So yeah, like you're technically having higher DPS, but it's only 2.4% more. And that is not really, that makes this perk not really worth it. Not only that, but just a couple days ago, we talked about the pace of Destiny and how it's a fast-paced game. Anything that slows down your game pace, which Adagio does do, is going to be something that players naturally want to move away from. And so let's talk about how we can fix that. Now, for Adagio, of course, what is the definition of Adagio? And I think that's very important. Adagio is basically slow tempo. It's a musical term. It is in slow tempo. Sorry, I had to do that for dramatic effect. But with that being said, that's why it slows your fire rate down. I think that in order to make this perk a little bit more viable, I think they should build into the idea of a combat meditation, combat and meditative state. Okay, you get a kill that calms calms the player down. Your fire rate slows down. Okay, you're dealing more damage now, but on top of that, you should also get some other buffs on top of it. I'm thinking some bumps to stability, maybe even some modifiers to your stability or your recoil direction, which would be really, really good. So yeah, you're shooting slower. You're shooting 20% slower, but you're also much more accurate. Your accuracy cone is made even bigger so that you can hit your crits much easier. Your stability is much better, so you can kind of line up those shots much easier. But of course, it's in slow pace. It's slowing down your fire rate. It wants you to aim down sights, take your time, start shooting, to get almost like a focus fire mode, right? But focus fire as a legendary perk, and that's the way, honestly, I would want to see this change. So in terms of the damage, keep it at 30%. I think 30% is pretty fair. I almost debated saying bring it up to one of the highest, maybe 45 to 50%, but at the same time, that's a lot, and I would have to play with the numbers to see kind of what the DPS increase, which I think that if you did, an easy way to do it is just increase that to 50% more damage. So your weapon deals 50% more damage, but it fires 20% slower. That would ultimately end up in a higher DPS number, but not so insanely high that, it outclasses other damage perks and stuff like that. Plus, you still need to get a kill. So you couldn't use this as a DPS perk for a second, for a damage phase, unless there were ads around. But then of course you had to stop DPSing, kill an ad, and go back to it. And primary weapons, not really something I would say I would want to be doing, to say the least. But really, this perk I think could be designed better for killing those high health targets, things like champions and stuff like that. Maybe You know, and another thing we could add to the perks, maybe have a flinch reduction when Adagio is active. Okay, you get minus 10% flinch. Not anything huge or crazy, but you get minus 10% flinch. That way, you know, because I know the Crucible here is going to be brought up. And again, what I try to do in this series is just talk about these from a PvE perspective, because PvP is a whole different sandbox, whole different thing, and Bungie has proved in the past that they can separate the two sandboxes. So in terms of PvE, I'm thinking maybe we can increase the damage to 50%, or if we're not going to do that, give it some other bumps to stats. Give it that plus 10 range, but give it plus 20 stability. Give it a modifier to its recoil direction, so it has much more vertical recoil, you know, or shoot, just give it flat out less recoil, like remove its side to side recoil, give it 100 recoil direction, make it a laser beam while it's active, because you're having to trade off for that slow pace. That's the Adagio. Adagio is slow, very slow pace. So when you're going in combat, that sounds probably really weird, but when you're going in combat and you're, you know, moving quickly, you know, thump 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 thump, Adagio hits, it slows way down. Players don't like that slowdown, so we need something to make it feel better to use. But I want to hear your thoughts on Adagio. Like that's my ideas of how we can fix it, how we can change it. Just build kind of more into the idea of a combat meditative state. But let me hear your thoughts on Adagio. Are there certain use cases where this actually is a potentially meta pick inside PvE? Again, PvP is a different ballpark. If y'all want to do a series on PvP, we can talk about a series on PvP, but for PvE, I don't see this being very useful. Increase the damage or give us all those other stats to help us feel like we're in that combat meditative state. But that being said, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Do me a favor, hit the like button, helps the channel out a lot. Feel free to subscribe, because we do daily stuff, content, conversations, series, stuff like that on the channel. And yeah, do me a favor, watch the videos you see on the end screen here, because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. I will see y'all in the next one. Bye for now, guys.